Good day. Today I'm going to deal with a certain type of question that bothers a lot of people in statistics. I'm going to deal with questions such as how many scores are within 2 standard deviations from the mean. Another example of what I'm going to deal with is how many scores are below 1 standard deviation from the mean. One more example of what I'm going to deal with is what percentage of scores are within 1 standard deviation from the mean. I've got a video where I cover all of grade 10 statistics in one video and grade 11 statistics in another video and grade 12 statistics in just one video. If you want more videos on statistics, the playlist is found at the end of this video. So, let's begin. Alright, let's deal with this type of question first of all. So, they gave us a range of scores and they say how many scores are within 1 standard deviation from the mean. So, first of all, we need the mean and we also need the standard deviation. So, if you check this in a calculator, you would see that the mean is 131 and the value of the standard deviation is 42.03. So, in order to deal with this type of questions, you have to memorize this formula. The mean minus n standard deviations. And the mean plus n standard deviations. So notice the mean minus n standard deviations and the mean plus n standard deviations. So this symbol, which is x bar, is the mean. And this symbol is standard deviation. So what does n stand for? N stands for the number of standard deviations from the mean. For instance, if they say 1 standard deviation from the mean, it means n is 1. If they say 2 standard deviation from the mean, it means n will be 2. So in this case, we'll say the mean, which is 131, minus 1 standard deviation, because they said how many are within 1 standard deviation. So it's just going to be 1 times the standard deviation, which is 42.03. So it's going to be 42.03. And we'll also have the mean plus 1 standard deviation. So 1 times 42.03. And when we simplify this part, we're going to end up getting, so we have to simplify this part and simplify this part. And this part is going to give us 88.97. The other part is going to give us 173.03. So this will be your lower boundary and this will be your upper boundary. So when they say how many scores are within 1 standard deviation from the mean, they're just saying how many scores are between these scores. So the scores have to be bigger than 88.97 and it has to be less than 173.03. So for instance, if we check the first score is 90. 90 is indeed bigger than 88.97 and is smaller than 173. So it means that 90 is part of the scores. And what about 102? 102 is bigger than 88.97 and is smaller than 173.03, so it's also part of the scores. And what about 50? Well, 50 is smaller than 88.97, so it does not fall into this range. So we need a score that is bigger than 88.97 and smaller than 173.03. So 50 is not part of the scores. What about 125? 125 is bigger than 88.97 and is smaller than 173.03, so 125 is part of it. What about 141? 141 is bigger than this stuff and is smaller than this stuff, so it's part of it. What about 220? 220 is bigger than this stuff, but it's not smaller than this stuff. It's actually bigger than it, so it doesn't fall into this range. So 220 is not part of it. What about 196? 196 is bigger than this, but it's not smaller than this. It's not part of it. What about 78? 78 is smaller than this part, so it does not fall into this range. Alright, let's check 137. So 137 is bigger than 88.97 and is smaller than 173.03, so it's also part of the restriction. So it's between this scores. And then let's check 142. It's bigger than this, it's smaller than this, so it also works. and then 123. 123 is bigger than this, and it's smaller than this stuff. So 123 works. What about 157? So what about 157? 157 is bigger than 88.97. It's smaller than 173.03. So that works as well. And then 118. So 118 is bigger than this, smaller than this stuff. So it works. What about 165? So 165 is bigger than this, smaller than this. So 165 works. 121, it obviously works. It's bigger than this and it's smaller than this at the same time. So how many scores? So now this question says how many scores. So notice I literally checked with everything, because at times, of course, we can be intelligent and we just wanna take shortcuts, but I would advise you to literally check them, because it's possible to miss scores. So you'd literally look at them, just look at each of them, because it's possible to make a mistake here even though you are intelligent. This question says, how many scores are within one standard deviations from the mean? So the number of scores that are within, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the answer to this question is 11 scores. So that's how we do it. So 11 scores. So 11 scores are within one standard deviations from the mean. So let's just look at another type of question. Just before I continue, if you want to be tutored, whether it is online or physically, whether it is the situation where you're struggling in maths, or whether it is the situation where you're good in maths but want perfection, take a screenshot or save these details. Whether you're studying Cambridge, which is the UK curriculum, or whether you're studying NSC, which is the South African curriculum, or IEB, or native courses which start from N1 to N6, or any curriculum you're doing no matter which country you're at, we offer tutorials. We've got lessons and practice sessions 5 days a week. We also give you tests once a week so that we can check your improvements. All right, here is another question. So the question says, what percentage of scores are within 2 standard deviations from the mean? So this time they're not asking for the number of scores, but asking for the percentage of scores. So we'll use the formula, so we know that it's going to be the mean minus n standard deviations. And then we're going to also have, so we're going to end up having the mean. So we're going to have the mean plus n standard deviation. So we obviously had the mean and the standard deviation. So the value of our mean was 131. So 131, and the standard deviation was 42.03. So we're gonna say the mean, which is 131, minus 2, because they asked for 2 standard deviations. So we're gonna say 2 times the standard deviation, so 2 times 42. So let me just write it properly. So it's gonna be 2 times 42.03, and then we're also gonna have the mean plus 2 times 42.03. So this will be the range. Let's just figure out what is our answer. Alright, so if we type this in a calculator, we're going to have 131, we're going to have minus 2 times 42.03. So this is going to give us 46.94. Alright, then the second one, we're going to have 131 plus, it's going to be 2 times, because it was 2 standard deviations, so we're going to have 42.03. So yep, we're going to have that, and that's going to give us 215.06. So for the first part, we have 46.94, and for the second part, we've got 215.06. So this would be the range. Alright, so let's check the first score. So the first score is 90. So 90 is bigger than this stuff and it's smaller than this stuff, obviously. And then 102 also works. And then 50 also works. 121 works. 141 works. 220, yep, 220 is bigger than 215, so 220 doesn't work. What about 196? 196 works. 78 works. What about 137? 137 works. 142 works. 123 works. 157 works. 118 works, and 165 works. 121 works. So literally almost everything. So notice the only score that is not within the range is 220. So it means the number of scores. So the number of scores, before we get to the percentage, because that's for the percentage, first let's delete the number of scores. So the number of scores that are within 2 standard deviations are 14. So there are 14. So if we want to find the percentage of scores, we just have to divide this number of scores by the total number of scores. So in other words, it's 14 over 15. So if we say 14 over 15 times 100, that gives us 93.33. So that's the percentage of scores that are within 1 standard deviation, rather 2 standard deviations from the mean. Alright, let's deal with another type of question. Alright, here is another type of question. Just before we attempt this question, if you're interested in knowing the prices of the tutorials, the video that contains the prices and the updated contact details, just in case these ones have changed, is found at the end of this video. Alright, here is another question. So now they said what percentage of scores are less than 1 standard deviation from the mean. So concerning 1 standard deviation, we had already calculated it where we said the mean. So we said 131 minus 1 times the standard deviation, which was 42.03, and we said 31 plus 1 times 42, so 42.03. So for the first one we had 88.97, so we had 88.97, and for the second one we had 173.03, so that's what we had. So now we're going to check the percentage of scores that are less than. So before we check the percentage, we need to count the number of scores that are less than 1 standard deviations. So we have to find out how many scores are less than 88.97. So this one is not less, not less. This one is less. This one is not less, not less, not less, not less, not less. Okay, fine. That one is less. So less than 88.97. And these ones are not less. So notice only 2 scores are less than 88.97. So therefore, the number of scores are 2. So we have to divide that by the total to find the percentage of scores. So when we divide it by the total and we multiply it by 100, let's see what that will give us. So that will give us 18.33. That is the percentage of scores that are less than 1 standard deviation from the mean. Alright, let's go to the final type of question. So here is another question. So now they said how many scores are above 1 standard deviation from the mean. So this is our range. So we'll check the first score. Alright, so let's check if 90 is above. Is 90 above 173? Nope, it's not above 173.03. What about 102? It's not above. 50 is not above. 125 is not above. 141 is not above. 220 is above. And then 196 is also above. 78 is not above. 137 is not above. 142 is not above. This is not above. This is not above. This is not above. This is not above. And also this is not above. So only 2 scores are above 1 standard deviation from the mean. So here they didn't ask for a percentage, that's for the scores. So therefore we'll tell them 2 scores. So we'll tell them that 2 scores are above 1 standard deviation from the mean. Alright, this brings us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. And any questions you've got or any video you want me to create, please comment below.